Hello everybody, it's Kimberly Sheridan from Losing It with Kimberly. Hope you're doing well today. I'm doing pretty well. It took me a while to get to the treadmill. Probably about an hour from when I got up. Just moving slow. I slept okay, but I don't know. I can't use the word dread. I don't dread getting on the treadmill, but part of me is getting to the point where I'm waking up and going, I don't wanna. Don't worry, I'm going to, but I don't want to. So I'm here. I mean, that is for me, the good part about it just being walking on the treadmill, not running, because I really don't think I'd stick with it if it was running. I know I keep talking about, am I going to run again? A big part is motivation. I mean, there's chance of injury. There's just getting older and not wanting to do any potential damage to my body and wondering, impact movement is good for strengthening your bones. So running is good for that. But, it's also hard on your joints. However, then you'll see really old people running or jogging, and those people have probably been lifetime joggers or runners. But I'm just not sure physically if it's the thing I'm going to get back to, and mentally would be the biggest factor now. Just mentally, it just seems hard. And this seems easy for now, even though mentally I'm still getting to the point where I'm like, but whatever. I think, I talked about not liking to work out with a buddy at the gym, even my daughter, who I love, obviously, but if I had one of my close friends lived in my neighborhood, right? So we could just say, hey, we're going to get up, we'll meet each other at 6:15 outside or 6:37, whatever it would be, and we'll take a walk around our neighborhood in the morning. That would be great. I would do that. That would be fun. It would be like chatting and, even if we were quote unquote speed walking, or back in the day if we were jogging and could talk while we were jogging, which I wouldn't be able to accomplish now. But, that would be fun. I would do that because it would be socializing and that would distract me. I think, we all look for something that's going to motivate us, but also have to sometimes accompany that with something that might distract you. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about what they use for working out. And this one person said they listened to podcasts while they were working out. And the guy was describing his workout, and it was a really hard workout. Like he was describing things that, he's probably really buff. And I was thinking, golly day, listening to somebody talk is not going to give me the energy I need to lift heavy weights or run really fast or whatever. I need music to pull me through those kinds of things. But it pointed out to me, everybody's different. So you just need to choose whatever is going to give you the various parts of motivation that all glue together to make you do the thing that you have committed to do. So we're all just, figuring it out as we go along. And I can tell you, for me, even the years where the decades of my life where I worked out every week, it evolved very much over time, just based on the circumstances of my life or my energy levels or my time I had to fit things in or my boredom with the thing I had been doing, so it's going to evolve all along for all of us, from this point forward. So anyway, I finished my arm exercises this morning because I did indeed remember to do them before I stepped up on the treadmill. And they are hard. I'm happy with what I've chosen. I'm happy with the weights I've chosen. I'm doing the bicep curls compound move into a shoulder press with the 15-pound dumbbells. And I'm happy with those, They're perfectly challenging enough that I feel like I'm actually doing something. But they are not so challenging I can't accomplish one set of 12. And as you know, for now, that's just what I'm sticking with each day, one set of 12 of one exercise. And for the arms, I've chosen the compound move that includes both the bicep curl and the shoulder press. So yesterday was lunges, and I didn't want to do them, but in addition to that, when I finished up with the treadmill, it was really hot. It's been, in the 90s here, and even though it's the morning when I work out, I have my air conditioner on, and the temperature of the house is 67 or 66, somewhere in there. Still, after I finish an hour on the treadmill, even walking at 3.0 with no incline, I'm warm. And so I felt the need to take a little break before I did my lunges. Not too much. I didn't want my muscles to cool down too much. That's the whole point of doing some warm-up on the treadmill before doing the lunges. But I intentionally walked upstairs just to have a little bit of a cool down period of time, refilled my iced coffee and took a couple sips of that, then came back down and got those lunges done. It was reminded the other day about another type of lunge, which I actually like, called a curtsy lunge, where instead of lunging your foot forward straight in front of your body, you lunge your foot backward at a diagonal, so it ends up being more like a curtsy. And it works the muscles in your legs differently than a forward lunge, so you could do them both in a workout. If you were doing legs that day, you could do both of them in a workout, and while they're both quote-unquote lunges, they work your muscles differently. So you could do both versions of that. I'm not going to do both versions of that, but I might at some point switch over to the curtsy lunge, just to give myself some variety. And it is, if you look these up online, the curtsy lunge, it wouldn't be good, I would think, for somebody with knee issues, because it is sort of a more of a twisting of your knee, rather than just a simple bend of your knee that the front lunge is, but if you can do it, and all of us have different, things we can and can't do just based on whatever's going on in our body, but if you can do it, the curtsy lunge is sort of fun, and it's a great exercise for your entire leg, not to mention your gluteus muscles in your bottom, which most of us need. Maybe not all of you, but I need. And I really, like I said, I've just got to pick some exercises that I'm going to feel motivated to do, just like you do, right? If you're incorporating exercise at this point. So yesterday when I was on the treadmill, I did feel a pain in my left calf, not a harsh pain at all, but just a hello kind of pain in my left calf, which I felt before, even when sitting. And I always first think blood clot. It doesn't necessarily have to be a blood clot, but I do worry about blood clots based on how much sitting I was doing during the years that I was caring for my mom, because when I was at her house, I needed to do work. I needed to do what she needed me to do, and in between those things I needed to do work on my computer, and I didn't have even the thought at that point of using a standing desk. And honestly, I think that's the most detrimental thing I did for my health, was sitting. I fear that there might be blood clots in my body that might release at some point. I think there's probably a test for that at the doctor, which I will investigate once I go to a doctor, because that is a concern I have. And, many of us have these unspoken concerns. I'm speaking it now, but I've really never talked about it with anyone. But I've really never talked with it. But I've never really talked about that with anyone. But I do have that concern, and if I could have that alleviated by actually having a test done, it would actually relieve a little piece of stress that goes, when that thing in my legs starts hurting, the piece in my brain that goes, oh my gosh, is that a blood clot? Am I going to die? Is it going to release today? It's just dumb, but, I think that's what I hope many of us do. Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know. But especially, again, with my family history of people on my dad's side all dying of heart-related conditions, that does scare me. Actually, another piece of that story, I think I was 17 on Thanksgiving Day. We're at my cousin's house, and she was an older cousin than me. I don't know how. I think she's like 9 years older, so that would make her, 26? I've never done that math. My goodness. Ooh, So Thanksgiving Day, we're all over at my cousin's house. Her mom, I guess both of her parents were there. And, my family was just my mom, dad, my brother and I. My brother and I were sitting on the floor playing a board game. And all of a sudden, my aunt, who was sitting in a chair, just started sliding down the chair. She had a stroke and she was gone right there, and like we were about to eat dinner in about 10 minutes. My cousin, who was the host, who was like I said, must have been only 26 now that I'm doing the math. She was 4 days from her due date of having a baby. And all this is sort of a blur. I mean, some of it's a blur after this point, but it goes from happily playing board game with brother sitting on floor to aunt dying to somebody going out to the street to flag down the ambulance because it's sort of a country area, to my cousin going to her room and closing the door and not coming out. I mean, here she's about to give birth and her mom dies, and that's just how quickly, people die when they have a stroke, potentially, if they die from the stroke, and so it's a very real concern for me. She was 59 years old, so it's a very real concern for me, and definitely, something that comes up in my mind. And, you can have a blood clot and be perfectly healthy. I can be doing the right things and still have, something like that, extinguish my life. And I know that's serious, but I guess it's all to say that for me, a medical, delving into my medical history and going forward is critically important to me as part of my path. And so, when I look at what do I want this next year to look like, it's not only changing food and getting back into exercise, it's also prioritizing my medical care as, one of my top priorities. And I still do have my mother in my life, and I obviously still have my 2 children in my life. And so, I've just got to find a way to make it important and to get to the doctor, so I'm covering all the bases. So for you might have priorities that go well beyond losing a certain number of pounds on the scale. I think that that's much more common in our younger years to have that be our uni focus, because that's our biggest concern. Whereas now, I think that a lot of people that are part of this program are looking at their health, as a more holistic, picture, and looking at all the aspects that goes into your health. And so it's not so important that we hit a certain number on the scale, except in that it might reflect, our likelihood of getting certain diseases if we're able to maintain our weight at a certain level, But I'm not aspiring to go back to my fittest level. I might end up there. Honestly, it would be about time. I like to exercise, but as you hear, my motivation for it is sort of low right now. Maybe it comes back. I mean, again, that was the great thing about running. It's sort of that high. I think it was the high that pulled me every day. And I don't get that high from anything except for running. So maybe that ends up being, what pulls me back. Music motivates me in the moment, but I can't say, it doesn't give me a high. It doesn't give me a high to use the music to do the weight workouts or to walk on the treadmill. It does make me happy. I love music. It does motivate me to get through that individual workout, but it doesn't like pull me forward back to the gym. I guess that's the thing. Music motivates me in the moment. The visceral memory of the high and what it felt like pulls me in before I even get there, right? It's the thing that makes me get to doing the exercise. Then music can motivate me once I'm doing it, right? So it's sort of a partnership there. And if I don't get back to running, I'm not sure that I'm going to get that high, So we'll see how things evolve. But in any case, health is a critically important part of the equation at this point. And I don't really know much about the health of my family members. As I mentioned before, my mom comes from 12 children and 2 parents. And, she moved away from the part of the country she was raised in so that she could get a job. And we didn't really make a lot of trips to see various members of her family. And so I don't know all their various health conditions. And on my dad's side, we lived probably only 25 minutes from where he grew up. But he really didn't stay in touch with his family very much. And he was ashamed, I think, of his childhood because of how poor they were. The interesting thing about shame is, my mom was equally poor, but my mom lived in the country. She lived in the coal mining camp where everybody was equally poor. So it was nothing that she felt ashamed about at all, right? She was told in high school that she needed to move to anywhere else, but a city where there were jobs, and that's what she did. And she started a new life in Richmond, Virginia, with a job, and that's where I was brought up. And then my dad lived in a small area right outside of Richmond, but for that reason, he was also exposed to people with money. So there was a variety of income levels in his school, and he was at the bottom. They lived in I don't know how they got the plot of land, but they had a plot of land. I think they built their own house, which was a shack on cinder blocks, and they had holes in their walls and no running water and no indoor plumbing, and he felt ashamed of that. And I think once he moved away, once he got out of the house, went into the Air Force, came back and got a job, I think that he just didn't want to look back at that. I think it was very painful for him. So he never really talked about his family much. We had our Thanksgiving and Christmas with his sister, who I mentioned earlier, my Aunt Maxine, and that's about it. So I really don't know the health history of anybody on that side. And I've had to discover it just through death records, basically. Ancestry.com. My library, if you have a library card, my library has a subscription to a certain portion of Ancestry.com. So I can get free access to that portion just by logging in with my library card. And so the library itself pays Ancestry for whatever subscription they have, which then gives me the right to look up certain information about people in the state of Virginia. It doesn't give me beyond my state, so luckily I live in my state that I was born in, and many of my family members stayed in. So I can see death certificates, birth certificates, and census data, and maybe 1 or 2 other things. So I've used it to look up the death certificates of the people on my dad's side. And, not only are medical terms used for the reason for death, they might also then go to describe a secondary reason that wasn't the cause of the death, but it might have contributed. And, some medical terms, so I've got to look up what those mean. Some of it's in doctor scrawl, so I can't really read it very clearly. So I sort of have to look up online to see if I can come up with enough letters of a word that I can figure out what in the world, what term they meant. And sometimes the terminology that they used way back when is different than the terminology they used for something now. So if you read a 3-word, description of a cause of death, and each word is like 12 letters long, then you look it up and you're like, oh, that's a stroke. Okay. But in any case, there's not one single thing that all these people died from at the age of 60. My aunt that I described at Thanksgiving, as I mentioned, was 59, which was my dad's sister. They had a brother. He died at 60. The mom and dad died at 60. Then I think there was another sibling that died at 60. My dad lived till 73, And I had one aunt, thank you, to her, Aunt Jeanette. She lived till she was 87 or 88. I think she just died this year or last year. She's my hope. She's the one I'm holding out hope that, okay, maybe there's some genetic stuff that got in there that's going to give me more longevity than it looks like. But in any case, there are certain things that you can't change about your DNA. So we're only going to take charge of looking at the things that we can change, right? Understanding the risk factors we have and addressing those, which I plan to do with doctors, and getting preventive tests that maybe might be more important to me because of my history. But it is frustrating to have to try to piece together what your risk factors are, But that's all I got. And my dad passed away in 2011, so I can't ask him. And my mom, stopped being able to contribute to any memory making or memory going back and telling me what was what about her life or her husband's life many years ago when Alzheimer's first set in. So I'm on my own to figure it out. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing some research on that so I can prepare to go to research some doctors. There's nextdoor.com. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with that, but nextdoor.com is an online site that you can join that links you up with people in your local area that have also joined Nextdoor. And you can post things for sale, or you can post questions, or you can post complaints, or whatever. And I have made some posts to see if I can get some recommendations for doctors, because specifically I know now that I'm looking for someone who is an integrative doctor or works in functional medicine, because some of the things that I've experienced in the last few years have been, nothing that you're necessarily going to see on a test result, or be able to see it in an X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI. It's the adrenal fatigue and the muscle aches, but both at debilitating levels and, hair loss. Nothing to measure hair loss in terms of a test. So, and of course, I'm sure when you look online, you put in one of these things and you come up with a list of 25 different conditions it could be, right? So you really do need a doctor who has a more holistic viewpoint. So I do hope to get a good recommendation for a doctor, or a number of doctors in my area that might fit the bill, and then see which one is in my medical plan, and then see if they take new patients. There's a process. I really, look back and think, gosh, it's so much value to not moving. We moved to this area for my son, and it paid off. It was the school system had a much more robust special needs, department, and dedicated to, and my son, I would say, I've always thought of him as semi-special needs, but he's definitely not mainstream, and so this area had a much more robust, organization or department for that, and it served us well. Served him well. It ended up being a great choice. But to stay in a certain area where you can establish relationships that are long-term, with all the different professionals that we need, including doctors and specialists and neighbors and friends, they can give you recommendations. There really is a lot of value to that. But if you don't have that, like I don't right now, Nextdoor.com turns out to be a pretty good resource for me to get recommendations from people. So that's my next step, is really to, invest in. I'll keep adding on different things in these daily rituals, but the biggest thing that I want to work on is getting my health under control, getting all the tests that I need to get that I've missed based on this last 10 years being all focused on others. Getting tests, really assuaging my fears by getting all the preventive things done, and then getting whatever testing done to identify the problem areas, and then get a treatment for that. That's going to be greatly relieving to me. So that's a next priority for me. And the next one, besides that, is meal prep, because that's really the keystone for me to make changes in my eating. The keystone is to have foods that I like, that I can make ahead of time, so that when I'm in the middle of a day or at the end of the day, I can say, I'm hungry, and I have a solution right there in my refrigerator, so that can include snacks, and it can include meals. I don't typically eat breakfast, so if I have, my lunches meal prepped and my dinners meal prepped, and some fruits and vegetables cut up, cleaned, put into meal prep containers in the refrigerator, and or some on the counter, that aren't refrigeratable. If I can have all that done ahead of time each week, that's going to be a pretty significant key for me to make good choices, because most of my bad choices are made two ways. One is availability. So if the stuff is in my house and I know it's there, it's much more likely, obviously, that I'm going to eat it than if I don't buy it and sort of have a rule of, if you want to go get it at the store, you can, but we're not going to have it sitting here, right in the next room away from you. I can't really do that because I have kids and they have snacks, and I don't, I know some people set a lot of healthy rules for their kids, and I think that's great, but that hasn't been the path thus far in my household. We have healthy meals, and then I let them eat snacks. So I think that, that probably won't change anytime soon, so I can't necessarily control what's in my house within my reach kind of thing as much, but I can control meal prepping and having healthy options available, right? So that's a key for me, and that's probably something I'm going to invest in this week. I have some meal prep dishes that I make. Well, really only one that is a tried and true. I had a tried and true salad that I really liked. I liked all the pieces, parts I put in it. I had a dressing I used for it, but I've just gotten tired of salads. I think it's really great. I hope I can come up with another salad that I'm not tired of, because salads are great for lunch because you're getting so many vegetables in there, and great fiber, and you're getting so many nutrients that you need, at a meal time. And if you sort of I have a salad for lunch every day, then a non-salad for dinner, it's sort of a good balance. But I just got burned out on the way I was making the salad, even though I like it. Even though they'd be sitting there, I just look at them and go, I'm not in the mood for that. So I hope I can come up with a different way to make a salad that's appealing to me. And then my tried and true non-salad meal prep is my Mexican bowl, which I described on here a different day, which is just brown rice, black beans, corn, and then chicken breast that I have coated in a taco mix seasoning and baked. And then I throw in some ghost pepper, hot salsa from Trader Joe's. So I can make those ahead of time, leave them in the fridge, pop it in the microwave for like 2 minutes, stir it, pop it in for another 1.5 minutes or so, and it's good, right? It's done. So I need I don't know how many more. I would love it if I had 10 meal prep dishes that I really loved, like this one, and didn't get burned out on so easily, and I could just rotate them, rotate through them over and over. That's really all I'd need, I think, for a good long while. And so if I can get that done this week, picking out the recipes, so that I can sort of start fresh the next time I go to the grocery store, which is at the end of the week, and then meal prep those next weekend and try that out. If I can get a good chunk of meal prep recipes that are tried and true for me, that's going to be a really big piece of my personal success. As I mentioned, I grew up eating healthy meals because my mom was committed to feeding us healthy meals. I definitely grew up with a sweet tooth. I remember coming home from school and baking cookies, from scratch. But we also had a huge garden that took up the entire width of our backyard and almost, I'd say a third of the depth of our backyard. And we grew pretty much every vegetable. And I never really worked in the garden much. I did some of the back end. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she really should have demanded more of us in terms of responsibilities, I think, looking back. However, if I was willing to participate, I would do more things like shucking corn or snapping beans or peas or, shelling lima beans, stuff like that. However, what I could do is come home from school. Well, and this was delicious, but come home from school, go to the garden, get a tomato, a green pepper, and a cucumber, bring them inside, wash them off, cut them up, sprinkle them with salt, and that could be a snack, and I love that. I love healthy foods, but I also love my homemade cookies. So, and that's pretty much how I am now, I really do love healthy food. I used to think, Oprah came out with this book so many decades ago. Her personal chef, Rosie, put out this cute little cookbook that I still actually have. And, I thought to myself, if I had a chef who lived in my house, or even if they didn't live in my house, I know you can hire people to come in. I've never done that. But, if I had somebody preparing all my food for me, I would eat healthy 99% of the time, because all I really require is deliciousness, and I do want pleasure, but I can get pleasure from a lot of foods that a chef could make a healthy sweet thing, right? So I realized that it's not, I do emotionally eat because I don't have that chef preparing me alternatives. But if I didn't, my biggest issue, I think, is just wanting to eat foods that bring me pleasure. And that could be done in a healthy way if there was somebody else taking charge of that. Or if I get this meal prep thing down, that's the next best step available to me. If I get the meal prep thing down so that there's healthy options when I want them. I think it's more the span of time between I'm hungry now or I want to eat something now and being able to get something relatively quickly is pretty much the challenge point that I have. So that's why since I'm not going to have my personal chef like Oprah, and I remember thinking too, at the time, a salad bar. I don't know when salad bars became popular originally, and this thought was probably maybe probably the 90s. And I remember thinking, if I had somebody preparing me a salad bar every day and my job was only to go and just, scoop up what I wanted, I got to eat a salad every day. But I'm not going to have a chef anytime soon. And meal prep, I think is a great idea. Don't know who came up with it, but I love it. I've collected a lot of things along the way, a lot of links and stuff. So I just need to go back to what I've collected already and revisit which ones I'd like to try this week. And this isn't going to be the week that I find all 10 meals that are tried and true. I've gone through quite a number of different tries, to come up with stuff, and still only have one tried and true salad and one tried and true Mexican bowl. So I'm going to keep working at it. Yesterday I made a really delicious salmon, but I don't really know. I didn't do any of the calorie counts. It had honey and butter. Obviously garlic is fine. Honey and butter, lemon juice is fine. So I'd go back and figure out the calories on that. I don't think it could be too bad. I mean, it had a half a stick of butter, which is 4 tablespoons, which is, let's just approximate 400 calories. Some of that ends up staying in the pan. There were 3 salmon fillets because there were, one for me and one for each of my kids. But my daughter wasn't feeling well, so I'm going to eat hers as leftover today. And hey, we'll find out if salmon is good for meal prep. Certainly wouldn't be one of the dishes I make at the beginning of the week, for all week long. But it might be good for the day you make it, and then the next day, maybe the next day. I'd never really have leftover fish. So I'd probably look that up for safety reasons, how long I should eat on that. But in any case, for today I only have one, so I'm going to eat that one and see if it's good. So then you can start, using dinner meals to make extra for meal prep. That's helpful too. As I say every day, I'm just figuring all this out as I go along, gluing it all together. It all takes time. I hope that, whatever you're working on now, you're giving yourself space to figure it out. Not going to be perfect. We're just figuring it out as we go along, make course corrections, tweaks, dropping some things if it's not working out right now. Maybe it's not the time to work out. It's okay. Just making improvements, right? Just a focus on making improvements. Not everyone's going to be a winner. That's okay. Just continue on. And we're all going to do it together. We're all doing it together, right now. So we're all going to continue on together all over the world, all joining in, all on different paths, different goals, different challenges in our life, but we're all moving forward, as a group, and we're all going to get somewhere better, right? We're just looking to get better. So for today, that's all. I'm going to finish out my hour on the treadmill, get a sip of coffee after this. I've already got my arms done. Yay for me. That's done. So I'm going to see you here tomorrow, and I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.